Detroit Lions fans, what is up? Detroit Den 313. We are back with another one. Steve and Will here. But before we get started, Steve, I have something to say.
Uh-oh, speak your mind.
Um, F those Buccaneers. What we talking about today?
I want to dive into two players, no one in specific. I want to talk about Carlton Davis and Terrion Arnold because the NFL didn't do us any favors these first 2 weeks. And a lot of people are saying, oh, the Lions got an easy schedule. We have two playoff teams that we ended their season. You know, the Detroit Lions have connections back to these last two games that we played last year.
Yeah.
This team's coming in for revenge. Lions have two home games against two playoff teams from last year. They didn't do us any favors these first couple weeks, and I'm not overlooking these Buccaneers because they looked pretty good last week. Baker Mayfield looked good, but I hinted last week in saying that Terrion Arnold's going to be tested against Matthew Stafford, and I expect he's going to be tested again against Mike Evans. So, do you think that young little Terrion is up to the test of future Hall of Famer Mike Evans, who's playing good football right now?
Listen, from everything that I've seen out of Terry and Arnold, to include the PIs, because I didn't think that they were egregious by any means. It's not like, actually, I'll leave it nameless because I'm not trying to throw any shade, but it's not like some of the other individuals that have played corner in recent years for the Detroit Lions,
Jeff
and when they've
Okuda.
had, yeah, when they've had PIs, Amari Warrior, and when they've had some pass interference calls where they were just getting flame broiled like a whopper, and then it was they had to go to PI to kind of save face. That's not what I was seeing out of Terrion. I was seeing Terrion in good position. I completely disagree with the second PI, and the first one was a little shaky in itself as well. So I'm not worried. I think that he's beyond ready, but I am interested in seeing what are we going to see this week. Are we going to see Carlton Davis? Because he knows him well, right? He knows him well. Are we going to see Carlton Davis shadowing Mr. Evans, or are we going to see Terrion Arnold getting a good lion's share? You see what I did it again. I did it again. A good lion's share of those reps against Mike Evans. So that'll be interesting. That'll be something that I'm looking out for. Do you think that we'll see a lot of Terrion versus Mike?
I think we'll see a lot of Terrion versus either Mike Evans or Chris Godwin because this is the Buccaneers team that has, similar to how the Rams are built, two really good wide receivers. Chris Godwin, just looking at his stats from last week, and I take this with a grain of salt. They were playing Washington. Washington's not a powerhouse. They had the number 2 overall draft pick for a reason. They're going through a rebuild. So I kind of weigh that into the options. You know, coming to Detroit, this is playoff atmosphere almost when you come to Detroit for every single game. So that's kind of a factor too. But Chris Godwin last week, 8 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown. Mike Evans, 5 catches, 61 yards, 2 touchdowns. So these are receivers with an above average quarterback. I really like Baker Mayfield. I think he kind of gets a bad rap going back to his Cleveland days. But we're going to be tested. I don't know if Terrion's going to be on Chris Godwin or Mike Evans, but he's going to have his hands full with either one.
Yeah. I honestly I think Mike Evans is in a class of his own when it comes to as far as Buccaneers receivers, but Chris Godwin is a solid receiver to me. I wouldn't say he was good, but he's solid. He's somebody that definitely is above average, but I wouldn't look at him as great. I don't think that from what I seen out of Terrion last week, covering Cooper Kupp, I don't think that Chris Godwin's going to be a problem. But it yet remains to be seen. I still respect him as a savvy veteran, so maybe he's got some tricks up his sleeve that Terrion hasn't seen yet. But honestly, I don't see how you could have more tricks than Cooper Kupp did, and I didn't see him getting overwhelmed by Cooper Kupp.
Do you think that if there's something out there that Aaron Glenn specifically doesn't like, could we be talking about maybe Brian Branch covering one of these guys?
I think there's always that possibility if there's something going on, or if they're banged up in any type of way, or if they want to just do something from a schematic purpose just to kind of throw those guys off. But I just look at those Buccaneers, man, and I think that there's nothing from a defensive standpoint that Aaron Glenn is going to throw at Todd Bowles that he hasn't thought of or seen before. Like I would be really surprised if he pulled a rabbit out of the hat that Todd Bowles wasn't thinking about. Todd Bowles is a defensive mind, man. So honestly, I think that you're probably going to see what we're talking about. You're going to see Terrion, you're going to see Carlton Davis, and if they go into 3 receiver sets or 4 receiver sets where they move those guys around, I honestly am not stressed out about any of our nickel D-backs being on one of those guys either, man. So I know Amik's going to compete. I like what I've seen out of Ennis Rakestraw so far. And if we get into a set where Brian Branch has to come down and put clamps on one of them, it's not a problem either.
Do the seatbelt. I think this is, I don't want to spoil too much for our game day episode that we'll have out tomorrow evening sometime, but this is probably one of the most important matchups, the DBs versus Tampa Bay's wide receivers. And there's a lot of other things that I want to talk about in our game day show where I think we have a huge advantage up front, mismatches, new players, old players. Don't want to spoil it too much, but I was just thinking, man, like I thought our secondary played very, very well last week. Like I said, the average route per completion last week for the Rams was 4.03. They weren't running these long routes, and we were still getting pressure. So little hint at how I'm feeling towards game day episode. But there's a lot of stuff that can happen. But I do think that, man, we're getting tested early. We're getting tested often with this NFL schedule, and I like it because that means later in December, or even going into January, like we can say, hey, we're tested, man. We're ready for whatever obstacles come our way. We've been sharpened from the opening kickoff until week 16 or whatever we're at, and I like this hard schedule, man. I don't want cupcakes. I don't want to be out there playing, like a college schedule where we're playing bums. Last year I know we played Carolina and Atlanta, and they were going through a rebuild. This is the opposite this year. Like we've got two teams right off the rip that were playoff teams, and we got a young team that's going to be tested this week, William.
Yeah, I agree. I like what Dan Campbell said about just coming prepared at the beginning of the season and how important these first few games are. You get an opportunity to kind of get a buffer for if you do struggle or if you do get guys banged up. If you can start the season off with a nice little run of wins, like and just not getting too far ahead, but if we can start this thing off 2-0, that's a good look, man, when it comes to getting towards the back half of the season. I would love to see us in the driver's seat rather than you get towards the middle of the season and, all those games matter because you're trying to win your division and you're trying to set up yourself in a good position to have a playoff run with home field advantage. So, hey, let's keep the momentum going and let's keep on banging out these wins, man, and start this thing 2-0 is kind of where I'm at, man, because, we two other teams in our division, we're the third team, are 1-0 right now. So we haven't really created a gap just yet.
No, it'll come. We'll pull away from these clowns here just in a matter of time. My last thing is the Lions secondaries. We love the names. We love how it looks on roster. Looked good on the field last week, but it's still unproven. Doesn't have a lot of experience. Like the OG on the team is Kirby Joseph. Like he's been in there 3 years. Brian Branch, year 2. Carlton Davis, year 1 with the Lions. Arnold, Rakestraw, Robertson, all year 1 with the Lions. So very, very young against wide receivers for the Buccaneers. Chris Godwin, I don't know how long him and Mike Evans have been in Tampa Bay since Tom Brady was drafted in 1999. Like they go way back. Like they got some chemistry together. And Baker Mayfield, you throw him into the mix. Is this year 3 in Tampa for Baker, or at least year 2, right?
I don't know.
But
be honest, I know it's year 2, but I don't know if he's been there 3.
I'm looking forward to this test, William. Any final thoughts?
They don't scare me.
They don't scare you? I'm not scared, but got a cautious eye. On these matchups.
I mean, I do. I respect them, and I always take these things as the first thing I look at is the head coaches, and I respect their head coach. But as far as when we talk about all the time, roster for roster, and like you said, not getting too far ahead, I think we'll be just fine.
All right, guys. Little test this week. We'll get more into it in game day. We're just talking about one little aspect on defense versus offense. There's a whole nother bubble, a whole nother layer to this onion I want to unravel tomorrow evening. We'll get into it. Leave some comments. Stick around, hit that like button. We'll be back later with another show.
Peace.